You're live. All right, we are at the Village Council special meeting, August 27th. We are at 7:01 p.m. and we will start with roll call. Councilperson McNamara.
Present.
Councilperson Koss.
Present.
Councilperson Passion.
Here.
Council President Cameron.
Here.
Councilperson Green.
Here.
And Councilperson Martin.
Here.
All right, and now we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to, or actually, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll let you say all your stuff for the conditional use permit hearing for Phantom Fireworks.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we were here 13 days ago for recommending body decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommended disapproval up to council. That was considered a public hearing. Everything was taken under oath. All of the documents submitted by the applicant are considered part of the record. All of the emails received by the Planning and Zoning Commission, whether for or against the fireworks or the conditional use permit, is considered part of the record, and that record is frankly considered ongoing. I know several members of council actually sit on the planning commission, whether they be voting members or not, so they have all heard sort of the pros and cons and the staff reports and the applicant presentation. We've talked with the applicant and Eric's going to, frankly, briefly summarize the staff report, also bring up the conditions that were sort of discussed last time with the Planning and Zoning Commission, which had grown from, I believe, what staff originally suggested was 3 to 8. And then the applicant is going to mainly tailor their presentation tonight towards some of the finer point concerns that they heard at the Planning Commission meeting. And so in lieu of that, everyone that had made comments, all public comments previously are considered part of the record. That will be so going forward. I know council has a 30-minute limit on public comment to 3 minutes a person, so that I don't think we'll pull the part over to 30, but it would be about 10 people in 3 minutes. And if anyone has anything new to say or anything germane to the topic, certainly please bring that up to council so that they can consider it and they can question the applicant about it after your comment. That's all I have.
All right, Eric, do you want to start with staff?
Yes.
Our staff is considered village staff, so village staff would consist of either Jesse or Eric.
Thank you,
It
Mayor.
would be our village staff. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Essentially, for those of you that were present, I think most of the council was also in the audience or at the hearing itself on the dais at the August 14th meeting. I will quickly summarize this. This is the same exact report that I've sent to everyone already. Essentially, the items that staff recommended approval on are based on several conditions of our conditional use code at this time. And so those are all based on 1232.12c. And so the basic one is the proposed use of conditional use of the zoning district after the development standards of the zoning code are met. This is affirmative. And so this, as I stated before, Phantom Fireworks is a retail store engaged in selling merchandise for personal or household consumption, which is allowed within the neighborhood commercial district. Under the current code, it is a conditional use. All right, second one, proposed use is compatible with adjacent land use, adjacent zoning appropriate plans for the area. And again, as I stated in the earlier meeting, proposed use is a type of retail store selling merchandise for personal or household consumption, is compatible with adjacent land use, adjacent zoning appropriate plans for the area. As an example, a retail store along heavily traveled arterial street, Cleveland Avenue. Number 3, the proposed use will not adversely impact access, traffic flow, as well as facilities and services. And essentially, to sum this up, we believe it could. And so, to that end, and because it also affects some other items of convenience and comfort, which will follow this particular point, the EIS was done. There were a number of recommendations in the traffic impact study. And as you'll see coming up, we have stipulated that as long as those are implemented, along with several other conditions to be noted here, we believe that they can mitigate potential adverse impact on the access, traffic flow, and that is correct. We will not do that. And there are several little, 6 little sub-items. The 5th conditional item to consider under the code, which is proposed use will not adversely affect public health, safety, convenience, common prosperity, and general welfare. And as I will restate here for the record, adverse means it's working against you. And so, but specifically, although it has been stated by the public in the last meeting, these items specifically have to do with the use at this location itself, not with the end use of the fireworks. Just like liquor, weed, or any other item that you can buy in a store, herbicide, and so forth, people can use them incorrectly, illegally, or otherwise, and that is not the fault of a legally operated retail store, whether it's Home Depot, Phantom, or a liquor store. So in this case, health, as long as they're following the proper health codes, just as in the restaurant or any other particular user, we don't find any issues with the health. We don't have any use that is going to ill affect the health of the customers and the public. Safety, they are a unique retail store and they have particular code requirements and stipulations under the state of Ohio that oversees them. And as I noted in this particular point, we defer to this decision if it passes the state fire marshal and state of Ohio's code requirements to operate safely. Convenience and comfort, as I noticed here, this is related to the other item on traffic above. There will be some potentially adverse effect conditions regarding the traffic. And again, that goes to the conditions which will state again for the record underneath as to mitigate those particular items. Staff felt that prosperity is met as we would like to have an operating professional retail establishment at that location. And so to reduce income tax as well as not leave the property vacant in disrepair, and we feel corporate entity here will do just fine. General welfare refers to everything kind of surrounding it, and we don't feel it's going to adversely affect by this retail use. Again, only when traffic is a negative effect will we see a particular effect on general welfare, and again, we'll look to mitigate those as we will recommend here below. 3 recommendations that we talked about that staff recommended were obviously everything under number 3 from the traffic impact study recommended by Phantom Fireworks. And number 2, the Phantom Fireworks permitted to hire a special duty officer during their hours of operations at least 15 days prior to July 4th each year to be stationed at the intersection of Jordan Road and Cleveland Avenue in order to assist the residents in getting into and out of their street during what is anticipated to be a heavy traffic period. And 3, that Phantom Fireworks commit to meeting with village administration after July 4th on an annual basis to go over observed issues and problems and formulate solutions to those issues before the next busy season. At the meeting, several items were added. I apologize for the dark background. We included those first 3 again. We also added another, from the discussion with Phantom and the board at that time, we recommended a second special duty officer to be positioned on Jordan just east of the entrance to Phantom to prevent wrong way traffic or people who are confused or any other folks from this busy traffic period to wander into the Jordan area so that they can be properly redirected and to prevent the illegal parking, which of course, as I noted in that meeting, the council has the ability to put up temporary no parking along that whole stretch with signage along with the officer to mitigate any particular traffic effects. Moving on down, there was a slight change in language under number 3, which was that Phantom Fireworks initiates an annual meeting with the village administration after July 4th to discuss the observed issue problems for the decisions before the next busy season. So we just wanted to put a note on that was what was recommended at the P&Z session. Number 4, Phantom Fireworks shall limit its hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. except from June 19th, July 4th. Phantom may operate from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on the weeknights and from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday nights, and when July 3rd falls on a weekday. Number 5, the Phantom Fireworks shall coordinate off-site parking for employees during 15 days prior to the 4th of July each year and shall update the village as to those arrangements related to the Memorial Day of each year. Number 6, Phantom shall install signage on site advising that vehicular exits onto Jordan Road is prohibited. We recommended multi-languages as we've got several different communities up and around Cleveland. 7, Phantom Fireworks shall install parking bollards around this building to protect against vehicular traffic. I think they were agreeable fireworks shall comply with all applicable property maintenance code provisions. And that's what we have at this point in time.
Mayor, I think like one thing, although Eric didn't testify as to anything new, so I'm not worried about it. Anyone, I know we're limited to roughly 10 people in that 30-minute window or however many, but if at any point you're planning or hope to speak tonight, including the applicant but not counsel, I'd have you stand and swear to testify truthfully. Thank you all. You swear to testify truthfully and accurately to the best of your ability, so help you God. Thank you.
Jesse, do you want the microphone over there?
I think they have.
Oh.
You guys have a microphone?
Yeah, you're ready to drop across the
Mary, ready for that?
Go for it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get my clock ready for
Oh, perfect.
my 2 separate clocks.
Good evening. I think I got this one right angle. You guys can hear me okay? All right. Again, my name is Stephen Funk. I'm an land use and zoning attorney at Rensselaer Andrus. I'm here to represent Fan Fireworks Showroom LLC, which is going to be the operator of this facility. They're also a corporate affiliate of BJ Allen Company, which is the parent that will be owning the property. And I want to introduce who I'm here with. I'm just going to do it basically what I have on my list. So Jack Abel, you can raise your hand. He's Director of Development for the Fan of Fireworks. Daniel Pert, who is also a fan of fireworks. Greg Smith, who is the Safety and Compliance Director. And as part of the evidence we submitted at the last hearing, we submitted his CV. He's got fairly extensive background in the safety and compliance arena for fireworks that is long, well before he began working for Fan Fireworks. So he's kind of one of the leading experts in the field in this area, and that's why we submitted his CV. Patrick Lanke, who is Strollo Associates, who prepared the building plans and the site plan and the landscaping plans that we submitted. And then Jennifer Hadishell, who is traffic engineer at MS Consultants, who worked on the traffic study. So I'm going to try to avoid repeating what we talked about last week. I don't know if you could just bring up the site plan real quick.
Sure.
And maybe just the landscaping plan would be sufficient. So while we're doing that, I'll just emphasize that this is the former GFS property that's located on Cleveland Avenue, at 5400 Cleveland Avenue. And we're not proposing to do any new construction. It's basically utilizing the existing building that is there, but obviously giving it a rehab in terms of improving its front, redesigning or paving and striping the parking lot, and utilizing the existing entrances, with the exception that we are going to remove one of the entrances on Jordan Road and make the other one an entry only. And that's partly done, not really because of the traffic study, but we just felt that that would be something that would be helpful to the village with some of the concerns that were raised about the impact on Jordan Road. We also are going to be adding we're going to preserve all of the existing trees that are there, so we're not removing any trees, but we'll be adding some additional landscaping along the front of Cleveland Avenue. So I think that if you drive by that store today, you'd see a dilapidated old building. We're going to make it operational and much better, more attractive location than you would currently see today. But functionally, it is a consumer retail store. So it's not going to operate really any differently than any other retail store. In fact, what our traffic study shows is that the number of cars that would be going there would be substantially less than you would see at a grocery store. So it's going to be relatively quiet. Now, I know that there are concerns about what happens during the week or two before the 4th of July, and I want to address that with a little bit more detail, but I want to emphasize that this functionally is going to operate no differently than a retail store. One of the things, the reason why I say that is because we do take the position that it's a permitted use, and I submitted a letter that explains that legally. So I just wanted to put that on the record that we continue to believe that this is a permitted use. We also have taken the position that the original application that we submitted on September 28th, 2023, should have been granted based upon the zoning ordinances that were in effect at that time. So I raised both of those issues because I just wanted to not waive anything for purposes of today. But in discussing it over with the village, we did agree to go through the conditional use process without waiving any of our rights. And so we have submitted a conditional use plan. As part of that, we did do a comprehensive traffic study. And I think that one of the things I want to make clear about the traffic study is that that was done based upon a methodology that was approved in advance by the City of Columbus and by the village. There is a standard methodology that is followed. It looks at what time of day you're supposed to look at, what intersections you're supposed to study, and that was all agreed on in advance before the traffic study was done. So the traffic study that was completed by MS Consultants is provided to you, and it was based upon that methodology. Now, the Planning Commission's recommendation appeared to be based really primarily on two concerns that they had. The first one went to the product itself. And I think that there's still a misconception about the product itself. This is a consumer grade, which is the lowest grade of fireworks that are available. Throughout the report the Planning Commission wrote, they refer to it as being highly flammable. This is not highly flammable product. And I thought maybe I could ask Greg to just clarify that for the record. Greg, if you don't mind, just can you explain the difference between consumer grade fireworks versus the display fireworks that you see, the professional fireworks that you would see if you went to, say, the downtown Columbus fireworks?
Good evening. Large professional display fireworks is a starting point that you all see. Those are very much subject to being problematic because of the size and because they're for professional use. They do contain a lot more product in them. It could potentially explode or mass detonate. Consumer fireworks, on the other side, is at the absolute lowest end of the scale, and it meets CPSC requirements for a consumable good. They're not allowed to explode. They're allowed to burn and combust. But again, there's no exposure to these type of fireworks.
And when you hear the words highly flammable, what do you think of?
Highly flammable is going to be defined in the Ohio Fire Code. It's going to be a class 1 combustible like gasoline, propane, thinners, paints, any of those type, aerosols, stuff like that.
And can you just explain, since you're out, I'll just have you finish, explain in terms of these products themselves can't catch fire, but if they were to catch fire, what would happen?
Well, if they're going to catch fire, like any other item that could be considered flammable, like cardboard, paper, anything, it's going to burn. It's going to burn normally. These are a little bit more exciting because of the nature of the product, but it is very well defined that these are packaged as per DOT for transportation. They're very concealed. There's no exposure to any composition or powder or anything like that. They're all confined.
And in terms of this particular store, what is the fire suppression system that will be installed?
Well, the fire suppression system is going to be the early suppression fast response, ESFR. That's the state-of-the-art, as good as it gets. This type of fire system is next to what's called a water deluge, where it's going to get a massive amount of water put on it, which is going to keep everything within the footprint of that store. There's not going to be any detonation or mass explosions ever with these products, even without the suppression system. It's been proven through much testing that I've been exposed to over the years. So yeah, the fire suppression system is going to be way above and beyond, actually. Phantom is good at doing that, going a little bit extra mile to make sure that everything is all good with that.
Okay, and I think it's indicated, the case law on that, and I presented a letter to your law director that I'd just like to introduce to the record. In general, you can see different things. It's a general principle of zoning law that essentially that if you determine that a particular use is either permitted use or conditional use within a particular zoning district, then it would violate Ohio law to then say, well, we're not going to allow your particular use because we don't like the use. The council has already determined that fireworks will be, whether it be permitted or conditionally permitted, within the commercial zoning district. So in this role, as you're serving today, you are serving in more of an administrative capacity in terms of applying existing law, as opposed to determining that you now have changed your mind and you don't want fireworks in the village. So at this point in time, you know, our belief is that this is permitted use, but even if it was conditional use, permitted use, the law would say that that you can't deny it just because you're now opposed to having a fireworks store in the village. The other concern that was raised is primarily based on traffic. And that's why we did the traffic study that shows that the volume of traffic is going to be substantially lower than a typical grocery store and is not going to change the level of service on Cleveland Avenue. So I think the concern here about the traffic is based upon the week or two before the 4th of July. And with respect to that, I think there's just a general misconception about what that volume of traffic is going to be. This is not going to be a huge number of cars. What I think we testified to at the last hearing is that the current parking lot of 60, which allows for 65 parking, is going to be more than ample parking, obviously more than ample for the regular normal times, but even in the busiest time, which would be basically July 1st through July 4th, it's still going to be ample room for traffic. And since the last hearing, we did go back and look at, to confirm up, what was the data that showed at the Grove City store. Now, we have the sales, we did look at the sales records from the time period, the 2 weeks before the 4th of July, and what it basically would show is that we are very confident that this is not going to be volumes. In other words, I'm sorry, it's going to be very unlikely that the parking lot will be actually full, and if it is close to full, then we're going to have traffic people there to help manage that. And based upon the volumes that we looked at from the Grove City store, the number of sales transactions per hour during the week of June 21st through June 27th were actually far, far fewer than 65 transactions per hour. We generally estimate that somebody that would come to a store is only going to be there, say, 20 to 25 minutes. So if you multiply that by 2, even if you had 130 transactions per hour, that would be more than enough for 65 spaces. And of course, Grove City, we believe, would be busier than this store, and that you might have more than one person in a car that would be doing more than one transaction. But so the volumes we don't think are actually going to be anywhere close to 65 during the week of June 21st to June 27th. At the Grove City store, what we did see was an increase in sales volume from June 28th through July 4th. But even during those periods, it's only during certain hours of the day, so it's not like it's all day long. And on those, with respect to those, they were still far less than 100 transactions per hour. And I think, Dan, you testified that you thought that it was going to be less than 100 transactions per hour, even during the business season. But I thought maybe you could just clarify kind of what the data that we were able to look at with regard to the Grove City store. What generally did you see even the week of June 28th through July 4th?
Sure. So in conclusion, what we found is that there were only 6 days where we averaged more than 65 transactions per hour. And naturally that ended on the 4th and then the 6 days. And that was based on our Grove City showroom, which you mentioned, and for the benefit of anyone in the room that's not familiar with Grove City, we are wrapped right in the center of that Stringtown Road shopping district, which is a lively, commercialized and busy shopping district there. So that's the comparison that we're using here, and certainly a different commercial area that we're talking about at Cleveland Avenue.
And in terms of the number of times it was above 100, generally when would that period have been? Or if we say 65 times 2, over 130 even.
Yeah, so basically the way that we looked at this from Grove City is based on the transactions from that showroom. There would be roughly 3 to, I think, 4 hours on July 4th where we would average at or just over 130 transactions per hour, which is the number of parking spaces that we have times 2.
Okay. And so I raise all that primarily because I think there is a misconception about the traffic, and I think that what one of the conditions I think that the village was proposing that we would have a person there to regulate traffic on Cleveland Avenue, every hour of every day for 15 days. And that is probably a little bit of an overkill and probably not necessary. We actually have been in this business for, let's see, over 45 years, since 1977. And we have 90 stores, and it's in our interest to allow people to not have a traffic issue and actually allow people in and out of the stores during really just those few days, July 1st through the 4th. So we would intend to have some additional, first of all, let me just explain. Under Ohio law, we have to have a security guard present at the store for 14 days prior to July 4th and 4 days after July 4th. So we will have a security guard there. I think the condition that was suggested was that we would have an additional security guard who would essentially be doing traffic management for that same period of time. We believe that the second person would be unnecessary, except for what we were proposing would be that for the days of July 1st through the 4th, we would have that person there. And we could also have that person there on the weekend before the 4th of July for purposes of managing it during what we anticipate to be the busy hours, which are generally between noon and 5 p.m. On those, what our data showed in terms of July, the weekend before this past July 4th. We think that's going to provide more than level security, but what we'd be willing to do also is to sit down with your village police force, either prior to the July 4th or even, frankly, anytime that would be convenient for you, and kind of walk through that with them to make sure that they were in agreement. We do not want in any way to tax the village police force, but we're doing this primarily out of our own interest in trying to make sure that we've got adequate people there for that purpose. And the other thing that would do is that we'd also make sure that people are following the instructions in regards to making sure everybody's coming in off Cleveland Avenue and exiting off of Cleveland Avenue, and not off of Jordan. So that was one of the modifications that we would propose, that essentially a second traffic officer for 6 days from June 29th to July 4th. And then after the 4th, we could also sit down and talk about whether that needs to be modified or in any way. We want to be a good partner with the village. We also, at the same time, though, we don't think it's necessary to have somebody there all day long, just kind of twiddling their thumbs when they're not really ultimately needed. Generally, a security guard like that is going to cost about $100 per hour, and to the extent we're always going to have somebody there. So, to the extent there are any issues that arise, they will be there. The question really is, when do you need a second person? The other request that we wanted to make was with regard to, I'm sorry, let me just look real quick at your conditions. Oh, in terms of the hours of operation. So we're fine with the restrictions on the hour of operation, but in terms of, from our past experience, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., and right now you have it on Friday and Saturday nights, and when July 3rd falls on a weekday. We think it'll work better if we do that the weekend before, and then July 1st through the 4th. Those would be really the core days when we want to be able to stay open till 11. And part of that is because, from our experience, by stretching it out and giving people, particularly on weekdays, the opportunity to come after work and things like that, you actually make it you expand the traffic out over a longer period of time. I don't know if you want to add anything to that at all, or nothing.
It's absolutely accurate, yes.
Yeah. And then the last thing is on the parking bollards. I just wanted to clarify, those are going to be located, the entrances, so all the entrances to the building and the exits from the building will have the parking bollards in front. It's not going to surround the entire building. It's a concrete building, but we do put the parking bollards in front of essentially the doors in and out of the building, so that nobody would be able to drive into the building itself. Patrick, do you want to clarify how that works?
Basically, with the bollards that we install, any opportunity in which a vehicle could go crashing into the building, the most susceptible areas, like your glass areas that you see in, the little old lady that goes through the bank or whatever the case is, that's our standard protocol to install those bollards right around those entrances and exits. But where there are block walls, we don't put them in because the block itself is sufficient to stop a car.
And then, Patrick, I wanted you to clarify for the record, you drew a 60-foot distance around the building structure that is the dashed line you see there that actually goes over into the adjacent property. Can you explain what that dashed line is there for to show?
Absolutely. As we had spoke at the conditional use, this facility is regulated by many different entities. The NFPA, the Ohio Fire Code, the Ohio Building Code. During the Ohio Fire Code, one of the things they ask us to do is look at permanent structures outside of the building. So not only are we looking at inside the building for safety reasons, we're looking at outside of the building. So they actually ask us to look at the 60-foot barrier around for permanent structures. When I say permanent structures, this is for houses, but not necessarily sheds. At the same time, this does not preclude the adjacent property owners from building or expanding that property. It's at the time that we're doing this renovation and evaluations.
So I just wanted to explain that that is not a building setback requirement. In other words, that information is there for purposes of, they just want to know what permanent structures are located within 60 feet of the building. But it does not, it's not a restriction on the setback from the building, from a property line, and it particularly does not impose any restrictions, zero restrictions on the adjacent property owner. They are still free to build whatever they want on their property, subject to whatever village setbacks there may be. So if they want to build a shed there, that they can do that. Whatever they want to do with their property, they're not restricted in any way by either the fire code or by the state fire marshal or anything like that. So the only restriction they would have would be whatever existing restriction there is now in the village zoning code. So I hope that clarifies that issue, but we can certainly answer any questions you may have about that. And so with that, we would ask that you approve our conditional use permit, and as well as subject to the conditions as I modified them, and we'd ask you to consider those modifications. Thank you.
Okay, we are gonna move to, thank you guys. We're gonna move to citizen comments. It's a little after 7:30 right now, so we can kind of keep track of this 30 minutes, because I failed a couple times last time. So we're gonna try this again. Sue, is it Craig Lowe? You're up first.
Is there a list that you need to sign up? Because I didn't get to speak at the last one.
There's a list, it's 3 minutes, 30 minutes total, so I'm not, I have it.
Put me down. But I'd like to make sure that the people that haven't spoken yet get a chance to speak.
I think quite a few of these people have spoken before, so that's gonna be up to you to fight them for it.
Well, I think like the law director had said earlier is that it's part of the record that they spoke. So I believe if you're gonna pick people, it ought to be the people that haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Let's go through the first few and see where we are, and then if you wanna try to talk over, but yeah, I mean, hopefully, maybe some of the people that haven't spoke will not use the full 3 minutes.
Okay.
So let's get through these, the best we can.
Am I up?
Yes. Are we gonna go in order? No, she's giving her time to her. So are you using additional time and running all of yours together, or are you just?
I'm hoping not, no.
Is your, okay. Okay, do you want to do the 30 and I'll do the 30? Because I think I can just pause it each time. So you do 30.
Before I begin, I have a request. So much good information has been presented by both sides. I would like it posted on the website, what Eric's, what he said that was very fast and small print, and possibly even what Phantom Fireworks has indicated. That would be a great step towards transparency. That's just a request. And then I can do
I will see if we can just, Bart is right here. He has a whole bunch of papers that we've sent out to council, they're all public records, so
Yeah, we'll post.
we'll see if we can post that whole thing. We will then add what we were given today, and we'll see if we can get that uploaded. No, I haven't started. I will not start it until she starts talking.
Hello, my name is Pamela Park Curry. I live at 2559 Lakewood Drive. And I am going to speak about things that I did not speak about before. This approval with conditions is all about the impact of Phantom Fireworks on our quality of life. Every zoning ordinance we have tries to maintain that quality, but not always successful. So council is considering approving conditions. What conditions can be made to lessen the undesirable effects on Jordan Road, Wildwood Road, and the surrounding areas? We know that it sounds like about 335 days or so out of the year, there will be no problem with traffic and parking. It's gonna be the other 30 plus days when sales are their highest and traffic and parking will indeed be undesirable. If Phantom Fireworks demands a store in the village, we can maintain some quality of life under the following conditions. 1, Phantom Fireworks, and this may not be too hard since there are not going to be very many cars, will monitor their parking lot at all times, especially during high volume sales times. When the parking lot is full, customers will be rerouted by the police officer or an employee to Northland Plaza where parking is plentiful. The Phantom Shuttle can pick them up and then bring them back to the store. Many venues do this at high volume times, so it's not unusual. We want to do things on our side to post a sign at the west end of Jordan Road explaining that Phantom Fireworks is not to park in residential areas. And I would encourage council to make Jordan Road and Wildwood Road parking on that street by parking permit only. And then we will give you lots of parking permits for you, your friends, your visitors, but not to just anyone. Minerva Park will also encourage the Yasmin shopping lot to also say to have Yasmin customer parking only. Ohio Revised Code says no person under 18 years of age shall touch or possess fireworks on a licensed premises without the consent of the licensee. Another condition, Phantom Fireworks, as the licensee, will not give permission for any person under 18 years of age to touch or possess fireworks on the premises. I don't know of any 13 or 12-year-old boy that wouldn't go in there and just want to touch fireworks all over the place. Shouldn't happen. And condition 3, I have shopped at the GFS store, and I don't know how they figure out what the maximum capacity is, and I don't know if there's more than one door in and out. But I would like to establish that the maximum capacity is the number of people who can be in the store and evacuate very safely and quickly, and that's including wheelchair users, and get out of the store in just minutes, should anything happen.
Do you want to go to your next 3?
I think I'm in good shape. Really, just consider the residents on Jordan Road. And thank you all for your comments.
We're not sharing time. This is, okay.
Get the most voices out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next we have Denise.
My name is Denise Morrison, 2698 Wildwood Road. With regards to the last hearing, I just want to say I believe it was not only irresponsible to joke around and make comments like, my employees, let's hope that they don't come to work not sober. Not only was that rude and disrespectful to the residents and the community, but your interactions maybe with the mayor, the planner, and the law director may be that way. However, this makes us question further whether you're a good fit for our community. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So what I want to say is this is wrong. Voting on this today would be considered unacceptable conduct, considering the fact that there are no facts. What are the details? From the beginning. From Phantom, I've asked, did you do a commercial real estate search? Did you hire somebody? And when? Who did you use? How long was the search? Was this before or after the approval of fireworks code allowing residents to shoot off fireworks on certain days? I asked. You did not answer. Planning and zoning and council should not be comfortable with the lack of information we have to vote on this. We need an account of the details and facts to include dates and conversations from all parties. Phantom, the planner, the law director, to name a few. With this in mind, voting on this today would continue to give the appearance of impropriety. There are already questions and concerns. Mind you, I am still waiting on my public records request for this information. Why is it being withheld? Or is it that there are no records and documents? Other than what Phantom said at the hearing about applying for a conditional use permit in and around August of 2023, the only other information available, or that I have, is that they contacted Mr. Fisher in August as well. However, in what context? This is an ongoing issue, this lack of transparency. Which will be the downfall of our community and our government. Finally, I wish to propose a postponement of this vote based on the fact that there are no facts and the appearance of impropriety.
All right, Kathy Williams.
I don't know, but I have time to Lynn. Which is you?
Oh.
Lynn, okay. I am recovering from I-surgery, and Lori Santilli Howard has been nice enough to read my statements.
I am not Lynn Eisentraub, but I am reading this for her. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Although I am puzzled why we are even here at the state. I understand that there were conversations between at least 2 village officials and the Phantom Fireworks Group in 2023. The former GFS building at 5400 Cleveland Avenue changed hands in February of 2024. The then sitting council was not aware of these conversations until later. It would have been advantageous to all concerned if the village had held a public hearing before the one held August 14th, 2024. Why? To take the pulse of the community. I expect the attendance would have been as massive as the August 14th meeting. The Phantom Fireworks Group would have seen that a high-risk business of this type is unwelcome and may have wisely decided to walk away from purchasing the GFS building. I am a former 4-term mayor, served on council for more than 7 years, 2 of those as council president. I served on the Minerva Park Community Association for many years as well, serving 2 or 3 times as president. I love Minerva Park. I am confident that the majority of the people in this room do not want a business that sells incendiary merchandise. Did I say that right? I am asking you to remember the oath you took when you were seated on council. You promised to recognize your responsibilities to promote the safety, well-being, and peace of mind of your neighbors, your friends, and your families. Please do your job and do not approve the conditional use permit that Phantom Fireworks has applied for.
At the very end, do you want us to go and address half of these? Because there's a lot of misinformation already, or do we?
Well, it's entirely up to you. The applicant has a chance to you'll ask questions to the applicant, they can rebut public comment, that's their right. And certainly, you were all the elected officials, you can say what you like.
Now we have Lori Howard.
Okay,
Sarah Hall.
Good evening. For the record, Colonel Sarah Hall, United States Air Force, retired, B-52 radar navigator instructor. I'll translate that into civilianese. I drop bombs and I'm trained in explosives. I wish to state for the record, as the trustee of the Joanne H. Hall Trust, who owns the home at 2650 Jordan Road, also daughter of Dr. Daniel Hall, who resides there, that we in no way, shape, or form support the granting of this permit, either conditional or otherwise, due to safety concerns that have not been addressed. It is unsafe for this area, and I strongly recommend against it. The rest of my time, I yield to those who have not spoken.
Jean McCall.
Well, actually, I will go ahead and do it because I think I can do it quickly. I just, in the last meeting, there was great to do. Oh, I'm sorry. Jean Hall, 5361 Park Lane Drive, off of Jordan. So there was great to do at the last meeting about the proximity of the residential property being right there next to the Grove City location. Au contraire. They have a vast parking lot. I decided to take a visit myself. And they have a vast parking lot and a 3-lane road to the to the other side of the road where the condo properties are. Then there's a very tall earthen berm with tall conifers planted close together on top of the berm. The berm is, when I was standing on the residence side, 20 feet up. It was very, I have pictures if you want to see them. Then the condos are built on property that's lower than the street. I paced it off. It was 150 steps from the front of the Phantom building to the curb across the street. The 3-lane road ends in a large cul-de-sac big enough for a semi to turn in easily. Let's compare it to GFS. 15 steps to the residential property from the back of the storage area of the building. There's a flimsy wooden fence built at a lower elevation that wouldn't stop a walnut from falling from a tree. It's not exactly straight up and down. So the reason why I was making a point about the steps is it is just so incredible. The back of GFS is what is closest to the residential house. The front of the building in Grove City is what I had measured. So it's even more vulnerable to be, I think, towards the back where everything is being stored and delivered than it is in the retail area. And so in your plan, a nice picture, but and it's always nice to have pretty landscaping out front with native plants. But I really think something should be done at the back of the building that will give the knots some sense of security that at least we try to not blow them up. Thanks.
All right, next we have Ed.
I did one.
Okay. Beth McFarland.
Hello, my name is Beth McFarland. I live at 2604 Wildwood Road, and I am here in my capacity as a resident, and I'm also a licensed architect, and I've been practiced in the profession for over 30 years, and I have designed and permitted many retail spaces, many retail stores. And I would just like to address that we keep saying that this is a retail establishment, they're selling consumer goods, They're going to be taking them home for their personal use, all true. However, there are some things, in my entire career, I've never had to do any of these items in any retail store that I've ever permitted, and I would say that's probably, close to 100 in my lifetime, or in my career as an architect. So anyway, some of the items I'd like to point out that they have said that they do in their store is some of the safety measures they have in place are they have this early suppression system, which is close to a deluge system, which is commendable. That's great. It's going to, put out any fires. They have bollards around the entrances to the building. They have, they're required by Ohio law to have security in place 15 days prior and 4 days after the 4th of July. They also have the 60-foot buffer around the building, which is also a requirement of the fire code. So I just look at that and I say, this is not a benign use. If you have all these other conditions that the fire code and all these other Ohio Revised Code have put in place, then this is not your ordinary dog grooming store, barber, thrift store, retail store. It is a very special use. And with that, also with the conditional use, I'm on Planning and Zoning Committee when we were discussing the conditional use and changing it from neighborhood community resident commercial to conditional use. One of the reasons that was brought up for changing it from the previous code to the new code was that we were told that it would allow us to, if someone put in an application for a business, it would allow us to vote on it and have a hearing about it and see if it fit within our community. And that's the process that we're going through right now. And but I feel that there's now this fear-mongering about, well, they're going to take us and sue us and all of this. And it's like, the people who wrote the zoning code, they're now the ones saying to watch out, we're going to get sued over this. Why did they not put in things to prevent these loopholes? Why wasn't it more stringent so that if we voted and disapproved it, then why isn't that being followed in? Because that's the voice of the people of the community. And so I think with that, I'm just strongly recommending that we do not approve the use of this.
Charles Lake.
Had knee surgery, so wobbly. Yeah, my name is Charles Lang. I live at 2576 Lakewood Drive, and I'm a retired fire lieutenant with the Columbus Division of Fire. I'm going to talk a little bit of different topics than I talked at the Planning and Zoning meeting. There's 3 of them. The Phantom Fireworks owners have repeatedly been saying this is no different than any other retail store, just like a grocery store, clothing store, no different. In my 30 years as a firefighter for the city of Columbus, I've responded to numerous fires in smaller retail type buildings, clothing, groceries, as I mentioned. These fires, while dangerous, are fundamentally different than you face with a store that is selling fireworks. When we arrive on the scene of a typical store, a retail store, we usually enter it with our fire hoses and we put the fire out within 15 minutes or less. Many of you have probably seen the YouTube video of the fire down in Florida. By the time the fire crews arrive, which isn't very long, in Columbus, the response time is 5 minutes or less is what we try to stick to. The building was fully involved with fireworks flying and igniting around the property. They weren't exploding. At that time, firefighters went into what we call defensive mode, which we also call surround and drown. And you can see that very clearly in the video. We pour thousands of gallons of water onto the building in hopes of extinguishing the fire that's burning within the building. That contaminated water has to go somewhere. It goes into the storm sewers. Where do the storm sewers dump the water? Into our ravine. Where does the ravine go? Into the lakes that's behind us. So I'm saying that this is not a typical retail store. And I think that was mentioned earlier. It isn't. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all the codes, regulations in place by Ohio. Second, the Phantom Fireworks owners state that the store will be a state-of-the-art extinguishing system, which is great. It's a quenching system. And that's better than no system. However, any system is still only as good as its ability to work. The best systems usually frequently fail due to human error, and engineers in their testing often do not consider this. The Boeing 787 hatch door accidents, the autopilot accidents, and most recently the International Space System problems, unfortunately all under Boeing's control. Not to mention dozens of aircraft accidents and train derailments across the United States that occur every year, despite the fact there are safety systems in place.
Time.
Pardon?
Time.
Oh, that's time. Oh, okay. So
Thank you.
hopefully it'll work. I'll be here to remind you.
All right, we have Rick Hofstadter. We pause it every time.
At the PNC meeting, Chatfield stood up, and were very worried about the value of their house, and like a lot of us, they were thinking ahead. At some point soon, they're going to have to go to something like assisted living or something like that, and they are looking at selling their house, obviously. Does this go up at all? This one? Yes. Okay, thank you. They're looking at selling their house, but they didn't think they get the value out of it. Real estate? Good. Unfortunately, that opinion is well founded. There are 5 studies I found, and I believe there are others. A study by the University of California, Berkeley, was published in the Journal of Clinical Economics, analyzed the impact of proximity to high-risk businesses such as fireworks stores on property values. The researchers found that properties within 1,000 feet of such businesses experience a reduction of between 5 and 10% of their value. They live right behind this building. A study conducted by the University of Illinois found that homes exposed to consistent noise pollution, even if it's periodic, such as New Year's and around July 4th, experience a 7 to 12% decrease in value. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners conducted a study in 2023 indicating that approximately 12% of private property owners facing difficulties in obtaining adequate coverage, reflecting a broader trend of increased difficulties securing coverage in such businesses. And I should say, they get coverage, it's just more expensive. The Insurance Research Council also reported in 2022 that neighborhoods experiencing higher claim rates due to nearby high-risk businesses had premiums adjusted upwards 10 to 25% because of the increased risk of fires. The Insurance Information Institute reported in 2021 roughly the same thing. Okay, well, I was kind of curious. Okay, they say 1,000 feet. What does 1,000 feet mean? Well, it goes from 2025 Jordan Road, where the Chatfields live, out to 2588 Jordan Road. It covers Wildwood Road out to 2540. It covers most of Westbridge and most of Elmhurst. That's 1,000 feet. So that is the group of people that may expect some change in the value of their houses. Is that 3 minutes? Oh, thank you. Okay, because I want to go from that. As many of you know, I was the fire chief, and I had a very close relationship with the police. And something they told me several times kind of stuck. And if you'll excuse me, they said in their parlance that they're hard asses, because they know what's out there and they want it to stay out there. Well, the problem, of course, is that if we have a fireworks store in the village, that turns that policy on its head. And I would submit that the reason why Tony Southwood signed my petition banning the sale of fireworks is that condition is still true. And finally, I went down to the Grove City store. And I walked in, and I recorded off to the...
That's time.
All right, thank you.
He has an additional 3 minutes. He's giving it to someone.
No, there's too many people that want to talk today. we still have, we're down to 13 minutes, and I still have at least 5 people that want to speak.
I'll give my time to
And who are you? I don't have you even marked. You're not even marked. I'm saying you're not marked, and I still have multiple people that want to speak. And we're not trying to be difficult, but this is council rules.
Just this year.
Joanna.
Good evening, guys. I'm Joanna Tincher, and I'm going to raise my voice today to ask council to either stand with the members of the Village and Planning and Zoning Commission and disapprove Phantom Fireworks application for conditional use at the building at 5400 Cleveland Avenue. Thank you. Thank you very much. What's the word? Put the meeting aside right now and come back so that we can have some additional time, because from the 14th of August to now, including some of the information I couldn't even get up on the website. So what I want to talk to you about is what I talked to village personnel back in August of 23, and that has to do with retail and the neighborhood commercial district. Number one, I ran a conditional use for 25 years, so I've had this and worse, absolutely. And a conditional use is something that, if it works, we can meet the conditions. It's something that I'm not opposed to, including the use of fireworks, which we never made a thing about it. So, I don't care if people want to let off fireworks during a certain time, as long as they do it appropriately. But what I want to tell you is that somehow between August and now, you guys sat back on your property and let it sit. Maybe based on something you heard from the township, but I know in my own case, township told me one thing, district attorney told me one thing, county, everybody told me something. I knew because mine was something that went from conforming to non-conforming, and I was able to overcome the conditions that they were asking. Retail use, and specifically what it says in our code, is that any retail store, personal services or business, or professional offices not specifically listed shall be considered conditional uses and may apply for such use subject to approval. I will say that also in the code it says 123202, conditional uses A. It reads in part that the reason it's here is to is necessary to control such uses upon review and approval by the P&Z. The P&Z did not approve it. Permitted uses, consumable goods, they went 1 through 10, and it said specifically. So when it was talking about retail uses in a neighborhood commercial use, it specifically said these things, which, if I can bear with me, you know the 10 things. It was hardware stores, grocery stores, meat and fish markets, fruit stores, vegetable markets, candy, nut, confectionery, dairy, retail, drugstores, proprietary liquor stores, and floors, and personal services. So fireworks is not a retail use.
Hi, I'm Adam Koff, 2828 Park Lane Drive. A few things. I am a double board certified physician, and I'm licensed in the state of Ohio and in addition to 29 other states. As far as the traffic impact study, any scientific study has to be, have good data and be generalizable to the conditions that are, that you're applying to. And, I agree that the traffic impact study was done according to, what was recommended in the guidelines. But I don't think it's really generalizable to the dates and times that we're discussing, as well as to the geography, the fact that we are in an urban environment, that we're at the end of a dead-end street, that we have a very busy thoroughfare. It's just not, you're comparing apples to oranges, and it's not really generalizable. Our street and the street adjacent Jordan Road suffers from terrible traffic whenever there is any kind of backup around that area. It's people speeding down, endangering our children, coming back around. That's one part that I want to discuss. The other thing is, I do want to also discuss that fireworks are dangerous. There were close to 10,000 reported injuries related to fireworks in 2023, according to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And the CPSC has also said that over the past 15 years, fireworks injuries have been increasing on average about 561 per year as a general trend. I think, you know, we've heard a lot of lip service that fireworks are safe, but they're not. And the whole idea that this primarily affects young people and children, that those greater than 50% of the injuries are people younger than 24 years old, the fact that there's increasing over the past year number of fireworks injuries of children and adolescents. I think it's something that just needs to be said and needs to be emphasized. Fireworks are dangerous. To say otherwise is just, you know, it's just false. Thank you.
Craig Buckingham. Tony, you're our last one anyways. Craig, are you sure you don't? Because we have 7 minutes. And Tony has enough time for his too.
Hold on.
You've got plenty of time. Well, she's the one. I'm done. Since that's, you're our last person, so.
Tony Benedetti, 2937 Berry Lane Court. You know, I've been coming before this council now for 15 years, pointing out the mistakes that have been made in code enforcement. And this is just another one in a long list that I have that I will be submitting to you guys. All the different things over the years. Eric has been behind or in the last 4 or 5 years, several different issues. Our office building that we were going to buy on 161, this was Eric's idea. You know, it was probably the most unprofessional thing I saw was at the council meeting when they were introduced to council. Basically, council was blindsided by a special surprise guest, which is the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen a council do. Because you're supposed to have an agenda and say who's going to be there and what they're going to be talking about. But it was a surprise special guest. So the incompetence that's demonstrated by this group is unbelievable. Now, I don't know when Eric told you or why you guys think that this was ever an approved use and that our code before listed 10 retail businesses that are allowed. And we have every right to limit the types of businesses that we want in our village. And the one problem that I see as valid, the biggest one that's valid, is the traffic and the safety concerns. Because I don't care what traffic reports you guys have or what your opinions are about the amount of traffic that's going to come to us. If you look at where the closest fireworks store is up in Mount Gilead or Mariga, and then down and if you look at the vast area that has no fireworks, we will be the closest to a bunch of people. So all your projections are just guesstimates. So all you guys need to worry about is that this is a safety issue in many different respects, and it shouldn't be permitted. It's not the kind of business that we want in our village. You have the right to do that. The other thing that hasn't been brought up is that we recently had to start paying Columbus for our fire protection. And we're stuck with it. And I don't think you guys should do this until you find out if that will affect our costs of fire protection. You know, because this is going to be, I think, in this tight country, the first fireworks store that is 50 feet away from a residential property. I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at the end of citizen comments, and I'm not sure if we want to let them rebuttal a couple things. And then, can I give them a pointer of explaining how they came about, or can we ask them to do that? Just
Sure.
Or, so the quick answer is, this is for you guys. I have said this story 5 times. They reached out the day that they realized that they won the contract. When there's a commercial property, the village is not involved. So it is when you go and you sell your house, the village doesn't care who you sell your house to. Just like commercial property. When somebody goes and buys a commercial property, we are not aware of the sale until it closes. It is not our business, not our problem. As long as they do their research and they're allowed or not allowed, thank you for shaking your head. I've explained this 5 times. I'm not sure why people aren't getting it. But the village had nothing to do with them buying this property. Now, any conversations or anything, if they called Eric and said, is this is this permitted, is it, that I don't know. Again, I've had 5 people ask for public records, this and that, so they're working on getting all that. But you guys have your own real estate person. I received a phone call about noon to 2, I can't tell you exactly when, so this will answer some of your questions, and said somebody from Phantom wants to come in and speak to council. And I said, great. I didn't know a name. I didn't know anything. So I put special guest. I'm to blame. It wasn't some big conspiracy theory that everybody wants to imagine. We literally found out that day. Eric physically called me and said, can they come in? Now, I do believe the other big point to this is, you guys then came in a second time. I cannot remember or find that date. But that one was on August 10th. And everybody's saying you guys haven't been in, but you were there. I remember you were there, because I talked to you outside there, and a lot of people were there. So this is not there. August 14th of 2024 is not the first time. And again, it could be irrelevant, that's fine, but I'm just merely, I know that there's been fear-mongering and everybody, going crazy. They have introduced themselves from day one. They came in and introduced themselves the second time when they realized that there was such a big, cannot find the date, so if you guys find that, let us know. And that's all I wanted to, is we're not involved in commercial real estate. We are not involved in the sale. And they introduced themselves the minute they found out that they were the winning contract. And I don't know how many contracts there were, but there were a lot trying to buy GFS. And that's all I wanted to say about that, because several people commented on that, and it's just not accurate. And now you guys want to respond to anything else? Or if you can find your date, you can let us know. I believe you were here the first time. Yes. Yes, August 10th was the first one. You have the date. Yes.
So just a couple of things. I'm not going to belabor some of the points, but so the first thing is that I think there's a misconception about the types of regulation that exist. So you have, for example, the fire code, the building code. That's handled by the state fire marshal in conjunction with the industrial commission.
Division of Industrial Compliance.
Division of Industrial Compliance. They're the ones that are going to review the building code and determine everything relating to compliance with that. And there are lots of, regulations that are building code related, like the size, the allowable size of square footage for sales area. So, for example, the Ohio Revised Code allows for 7,500 square footage of sales area, but there's a whole host of other regulations that deal with that. And so when there's requests for conditions, it puts a difficult situation because there are experts that are involved in that on a daily basis who already are regulating those areas. And we're going to comply with all of those requirements and, in fact, exceed the requirements with regard to the building code and the fire prevention code. And we will have to obtain a license, and there will be an inspection done before we can open our doors. Second is that, sorry, I have my notes over here. In terms of communication with the village, I think we've been upfront in terms of notifying you when we first purchased the property, and then also I've sent multiple letters to Jesse, and all of those are public record, and those are actually already been submitted as exhibits to you and to the planning commission. So there wasn't anything that we withheld. Everything has been provided to the planning commission, and it's still our position that this is a permitted use, but we're going through the conditional use process. But all of that's laid out in correspondence that's made to the board. So nothing has been hidden. What we've done is relied on the law. And the fact of the matter is that Ohio General Assembly has determined that we are a lawful use, subject to regulation by the fire marshal, and we're complying with Ohio law and the village. We relied on the village planning code to the extent that it provides for these types of uses within the neighborhood commercial district. With regard to the Florida store that was raised at the last meeting, and I just thought I would have you explain again, that was an anomaly because that was in Melbourne, Florida, where there was a grandfathered store, which was no fire suppression system, you could explain.
Yeah, that store was built, it was like 22 years prior to any of the laws coming into place in the state of Florida. So they grandfathered in, it was a prior restaurant. And so then it was conformed to be a consumer fireworks store, which was very successful for up to the point of more than 22 years when a car ran into it from an individual who had a medical emergency. They determined he had a heart attack and drove into the store. All emergency plans worked well, but that store was grandfathered from having the fire water suppression system. It had all the other smoke detection alarms and all that, but it just didn't. And there was no explosion. It was just a big burn. And it stayed in the footprint and did not damage any adjoining properties, which that's surrounded 2/3 by a hotel. There's a gas station. There's some other businesses there. None of those were affected by the incident.
How many people were injured or died during that incident?
Absolutely nobody. There were 4 of our employees in the store at the time. 2 customers had just left the building. They had an emergency evacuation plan in place. It went flawlessly. They were all out of the building, and there was nobody harmed. The driver who went into the building perished.
So in any event, the fact of the matter is that in the state of Ohio, there's been lots of people involved with fireworks safety who've gotten involved in preparing the regulations that are set forth in the building code, the fire prevention code. All of those are designed to protect the public safety. All of those are regulated by the state fire marshal. We comply with those, and in fact, we go above and beyond. So there is no concern about safety because it is a matter that's already regulated and handled by the state fire marshal. And then I think there was a discussion about the impact on property values. And let me just say that property values are always a very difficult thing. Generally, you have an appraiser who looks at all kinds of factors. It's very difficult to make broad statements, particularly when we don't even have the study presented. We don't know who prepared the study, what conditions they looked at. It's not considered evidence that would be substantial evidence in an administrative proceeding. And ultimately, what we have here is that we're located on a main commercial thoroughfare, Cleveland Avenue. There's really no evidence that our particular store is going to have any negative impact as opposed to any other commercial store that would be located there. And I would frankly submit that having abandoned GFS store with nothing going in there would have a more negative impact on the entire area than having a commercial district that actually has stores being occupied.
Why would it be abandoned?
It currently is, as I said, it was currently
But
abandoned.
here's the thing, why would it be abandoned unless you guys abandoned it?
Well, we bought it and put it to use. So that's the only reason why we want to be able to put it to use.
So are you saying that if you wouldn't put it to use, you would abandon it?
I'm not saying that we would abandon it. We want to put it to productive use. But ultimately, we want to put it to productive use. So the fact of the matter is that if we hadn't bought it, it would have been left abandoned. That's the difference.
Okay. I'm going to put this to use tonight. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this back and forth between, okay, so
Absolutely.
I just wanna make sure everybody knows what we're doing. So is it council?
Council can ask questions to the applicant or
Okay.
staff. This record, it needs to be clean. There's not back and forth with the audience. There's not chirping and yelling. We need people to be able to hear what is being said. We need respect for everybody in the room.
Guys, can I just stop? Okay, thanks. Can you please comment on the contradicting statements made by Dan Burke on September 28th, 2023? Previous claims that you guys would expect hundreds of people, maybe thousands per day, and that it is a, quote, hyper-seasonal business. That directly contradicts what you told us today.
Okay, well, I don't know what he said in September, but he's here today, and we've looked at the actual data of the Grove City store in terms of what the actual transactions have been.
So either those statements were inaccurate, they were made by the same person, or the statements today were inaccurate.
No, that's not the case. We have more reliable data that he is relying on for purposes of the store. Go ahead. Can you
There's more than
explain?
12 hours, they're open more than 12 hours a day. So if they do 65 transactions times the 14 hours that they're open, that's 1,000 a day.
I guess I would ask, what is the contradictory statement?
So it would expect hundreds of people, maybe thousands per day.
Okay. So, yes, and as we looked at the transaction counts from our Grove City store, I'm not going to get into specific numbers on the record. We'll discuss those privately. But in talking about transactions per hour, on one or two of those days, it was over 1,000. I will say that it was less than 2,000 by a significant number.
Okay. So you stated last time we spoke, again, on that date, I listened to it, on the 28th, that it is a hyper-seasonal business. Comparison to a grocery store, you know, I don't know if that's accurate, if you would describe yourself as a little bit different and hyper-seasonal, which is where our concerns about traffic are. Can you comment on that?
But yeah, and maybe I can explain that and I'll let you comment. I think what we're talking about is that the vast majority of the time it's going to be substantially less. So it's going to be a relatively quiet store. So we talk about the busy time, we're comparing that to the normal time. So in the week before the 4th of July, it's busier than normal. But the sense that it is way beyond this capacity of the store to handle it is not an accurate statement. So there's a parking lot with 65 cars. The vast majority of the time it will not be filled. The 1 week beforehand, based upon our examination of the actual data, when you're looking at an average of transactions per hour, if you factor in that the average transaction is roughly 25 minutes, you know, from the time somebody arrives there and then the time in the park, we're very confident that the store can handle that capacity. We wouldn't be buying it if we didn't think that it could. And Dan, I don't know if you want to comment on that at all.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to say anything more to that point unless you still have a question or they have an answer.
I think my last question is last time we spoke again, you said we don't want to be in a place where we are not wanted, which now turns into a discussion of we have a right to be here. Can you comment on that?
I don't ever recall saying we have a right to be here, but we do have maintained the position that we are permitted use in the city. I'm not sure what you're mentioning, I'm sorry.
So you said we don't want to be in a place where we're not wanted, and now we're talking about we deserve to be here even though there's people that have concerns.
Well, I mean, I think that the concerns that are being raised are not actually substantiated. The concerns that I've heard is concern about safety, and I think we've addressed those, and concerns about traffic, and I think we've addressed that as well. We've done a complete traffic study. We've looked at what our volumes actually were in Grove City. We've looked at the number of spaces that we're going to be providing, and we believe that we can be a good partner with the village. So when we talk about do we want to be wanted, yes, everybody wants to be liked and everything, but ultimately we want to be a good partner, and we're going to make this store work for the benefit of the village and for the benefit of Phantom Fireworks. And our experience with 90 stores over 45 years of business is that we are a good partner with villages and townships and cities where we're located. And we do not experience problems that are being raised. And so when we say that we want to be a good partner with the village, that is very much a true statement.
And then where are your employees going to park during the busy season?
Jack, do you want to explain that?
Well, just,
Wait for the mic.
we will locate something off premises. We haven't done that yet. Obviously, we haven't got approval to open yet, but we've done that at other locations.
What's typical?
I think that's one of the conditions, yeah.
What's typical in your experience?
It depends on where we're located, but obviously we need to find some neighboring parcel where we can shuttle employees back and forth.
Okay.
Okay. I'll just sit down here. Unless you have any
She
other-
went. You got questions? Okay.
Okay.
I do. Hi, I'm Kathy. My husband Mike and a little bit live on Elmhurst, and I'm exactly 425 steps from your front door, so I'm interested in this. I finally understand the process. I just came on council in January of this year, and clearly things had happened before. So I finally understand how we got where we are now. What I'm curious is, how did you come to choose this building to buy in Central Ohio?
So obviously, we're a company, a large company with 90 stores. I have the real estate department. We look for areas in Ohio. We looked in the Cleveland suburbs, Columbus suburbs, and Cincinnati. In the last 4 stores we opened were Grove City on the south side of Columbus, one on the east side of Cleveland, one on the north side of Cincinnati, and we looked on the north side of Columbus. So this came about strictly from a real estate search. We found out this was available.
And then also one on the north side of Dayton.
On the northwest side, which is another GFS store.
So it sounds like pure location. This just happened to be the right location. There weren't other considerations that you looked at?
Obviously, we look at demographics first of all, find out where the population is going to be. And then we find locations. We do some due diligence. We look in the zoning code on our own before we contact anybody. And then quite often, like I did in this case, I stop and introduce myself to a city council or village council.
Okay, thank you. How many other locations approximately are in this kind of setting, and I'm sorry, I think you've probably answered that before, but where you're this close to the neighborhood, 1,000 feet from my front door? How many of your other stores?
Off the top of my head, I don't know how many are going to be exactly, but we are in neighborhoods that border on residential neighborhoods.
Yeah. How those processes go? How the neighbors respond?
So in general, we're located in commercially zoned districts. And so it's often the case that a commercially zoned district may be adjacent to another residential district. But we're on Cleveland Avenue, which is a commercially zoned district. So in terms of our use compared to any other retail use, is not going to be any worse than any other retail use. And then can you
Dan just mentioned, we have one of our locations in Florida is in West Palm, which borders on a residential neighborhood.
Yeah. How'd that process go?
Went fine, didn't have any issues in there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and I think it might help provide some context regarding, it was said that the building was purchased, I think, in September. Was it August, correct? August of 2023, perhaps?
That's the contract is entered into. The closing wasn't until, I think, February of this year.
I guess I'm trying to make the kind of, and maybe it's just from an understanding point of view, and it's not a gotcha kind of a question or anything like that. It's like, you can apply for, I didn't realize you could apply for a permit for zoning on a building that you didn't technically own yet. And when you see the transfer on the auditor side of February 2024, my brain goes, well, how, I can't get a transfer, Stacy.
I can explain that. If you look at our conditional use application that we submitted in September of 2023, we indicated there that we had entered into a purchase agreement with GFS stores, and that we were applying for what the proposed use was going to be. And that is very standard practice in the area of zoning. Oftentimes there's like a due diligence period prior to closing. Now, we wanted that to be ruled on. There was a moratorium in place. It's our position that once that moratorium expired in January, we should have been granted a conditional use permit, a permitted use zoning certificate at that time. And I submitted to you all a letter that indicated that. Based upon my review of Ohio law and also the analysis of the current zoning and the new zoning, we proceeded to go ahead and close on the transaction in February. But it wasn't based on anything other than what the law itself provides.
Anybody else? Okay, do we want to, at this point, go over the conditional uses?
Sure. So Aaron's trying to pull up there on the, or the conditions that we discussed. Okay, yes. No. In my read, and Eric's review, we discussed what the applicant proposed as far as days and times on the additional security. I take their point. I also take your point. I also take the concerns of the residents pretty seriously about we don't know what we don't know. And so in an effort to thread that needle, I would submit to you all that perhaps as written, I think we started 15 days prior to the 4th, we could write that to say for the first year, and then traffic mitigation efforts are discussed as part of that I believe the 7th condition, the 6th condition.
I'm sorry, there's something said in my.
I put different days.
And so my thought there was, for the first year, do it in 15 days as proposed. If it turns out to be a nothing burger, we can adjust it. Right thereafter, it's only 1 year, it's only 15 days. So that would be my suggestion.
I did mine a little different, and I don't disagree with that, so I don't have.
It's
I
all
actually
you.
put June 28th through July 5th, because July 5th falls on a Saturday. So, and whether or not they want to do that or not, but I did, because I don't disagree. I mean, I think you're gonna have somebody standing out there for 12 hours. I mean, like he said, there's only gonna be a few hours in that, but we don't know what those hours are gonna be yet, so. But June 28th falls on a Saturday as well.
And then, totally up to you guys. I was just, I think for the first year, probably best at least in your ability to err slightly on the side of caution to see how it goes. Yeah. Feel free to discuss the whole situation among yourselves.
So one thing, I'm worried that we're limiting it to one holiday, and there could be potential of others, especially knowing the demographic of the mixture of our community. What if there are other holidays that we see a similar traffic? We have no conditions in here on monitoring that.
Yeah, IE is 2 weeks prior to that. 2 weeks prior to that. That was a very busy time for
So I'm wondering if we can put some language in it that would say, we'd like to have the right to add additional holidays in there.
Would we do that at the 1
Well,
year,
yeah.
or because we wouldn't know until after? I mean, my question is, I'm asking. So would we just do that in the 1 year review, like for New Year's Eve?
We tend to think that it may very well be right. We don't know. And so when we get there, there's going to be I can easily see an ask being put forward saying, okay, we really only need, we've all seen it, we really need a special duty officer for maybe 5 days versus what we're saying 14, 15 here.
Right.
But there could be a response from the village saying, but we also saw this over these 3 days for this holiday. And then, oh yeah, we were really busy those 3 days. So,
Perhaps based upon transactional data that Fannie might provide as a result, we could perhaps at least at some point create some, guardrails for when we need to do that.
The first year is going to be a trial run for both of us. For everyone.
So can I make a suggestion? We gotta turn it back on.
I guess trial run is best for the learning experience for everyone.
Thank you. So a couple things. kind of made this request, but I just want to sort of explain. We are going to have somebody there, a special duty officer already. So what we would be asking is that there would be one additional special duty officer there. And they would be basically looking at traffic as a whole, because having had 2 people is going to be way too much. They're not going to be stationed at like one location. They're going to be going where they need to go to deal with the situation, whatever that might be. And there's already going to be another one there anyway, so you have some degree of backup. So that would be sort of my request. And then I think, to your point, Jesse, what I would request would be that there would be a meeting that would look at actual data, and that could include what you're saying, other times of the year, if there are days that would seem to be busier than normal. And we could sit down and have that meeting and come out where we actually, what days we think are the days that need to have an officer there, and what hours of the day. So did you have any more, Dan, on that? Jack? Okay.
Do your store managers have the authority to make decisions on the fly if, God forbid, Cleveland's backed up for half a mile? Would they be able to, based on what they're seeing right then and there, to contact special duty or contact Columbus or Minerva Park and say, we need another officer?
So just to understand, the store managers have a level, we have regional managers, and we have multiple people that run retail operations, so we're a large enough organization that we can run down things quickly in our locale.
Can we have your number? Okay, so here's my concern. There was a Saturday right before Christmas, this was in Delaware County, where literally all of Columbus went to the zoo, or Zoo Lake. And I was trapped, Jason was trapped in the zoo parking lot for 3 hours with my 2 children and my mother-in-law in the car. So, and I called, because I'm from that area, I called the Delaware County Sheriff's Office and I said, hey guys, you need an officer out here, like this is crazy. And their response was, sorry, we're understaffed and we don't have an officer available to serve special duty in order to direct traffic. What happens if that is a scenario here, where one officer isn't sufficient, where all of a sudden you have a situation and I'm trapped and I can't go to work and I have a life-saving thing and I'm on call, or we have a medical emergency and we're trapped in a dead-end street, or people are turning around in our street all because they're trying to get out of it? What happens?
So what if one option is to just be speaking of something? One, you're concerned, I understand that Columbus Zoo, this is not going to be that situation. And we know that for confidence because we have Rose City as our example of what is suburban. And that store in particular is going to be a higher volume than we anticipate for this store. If I could just respond. So one option would be that if we did one additional officer, then if something were to happen, you could request an additional officer.
Like an on-call officer?
I don't know if it would be on call, and you'd have to make arrangements to hire them, but.
Yeah, the simple answer to the question is, if we needed to have an on-duty traffic officer and the staff at the finger, it's going to be unlikely. We're not going to get it that day. It's possible that we can get it the next day. I think that underscores the importance of the kind of planning that we're doing. Yes, I think mirroring traffic officers to the state-required in-store security requirement that was instituted more than 30 years ago, which is an antiquated requirement in itself, is overkill. For example, we keep using the number of 100 transactions an hour. On June 25th, our Grove City showroom barely did more than that the entire day. We're talking about starting traffic police 10 days before that. And now we're talking about doing it 1 or 2. So I think, based on the traffic data that we provided, based on some of the transaction data that we provided, we can fashion this in a pretty intelligent way. And I think we can add for a buffer zone, which is clearly what the wish of some of the members of the council are doing here.
Well, hold on, go back up a little bit. Okay, the traffic data that you provided, right? So let's talk about this. I'm a logical person, I'm also a doctor, I want to talk about this in a fact basis. So the traffic data that you provided, you did a study on Saturday in April? Okay, so where is the data that talks about your peak season? And how does that reflect upon your planning for that traffic officer?
So-
I didn't see that.
So two things. One is the traffic study that is determined based upon the standard methodology.
I
we're doing.
understand that.
And you don't pick the day before Christmas
Correct.
as your.
So we don't have that data, is what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. We have looked at our Grove City store
Okay.
and we looked at the number of sales transactions. And
During July 4th.
during July 4th. and I
Where is
explained-
that data?
Well, we looked at the number of sales transactions, so we're not at liberty to provide you with the data, because it's not a traffic count. But what we can tell you is that based upon the sales transactions that we looked at in Grove City, there was, in general, less than 65 sales transactions per hour in the time frame before July 1st. The only time where it was around the range of 100 transactions per hour was in that July 1st to July 4th timeframe. So what we're saying is that with 65 parking spaces, and the fact that an average person would be at the store 20 to 25 minutes, or 25 to 35 minutes if you want to use that, you would have more than enough parking in the store to facilitate that that customer. So we talk about, 100 transactions. The parking, the number of vehicles are going to be more in line with 50. You follow me? So that's per hour. We're very comfortable that this store has the parking and the wherewithal to handle that level of traffic. And we're going to have this officer there already. We're saying we're willing to agree to have one additional officer to help manage traffic. We think ideally between June 28th and July 4th. But if you want the additional time, I think that that's overkill, but we're willing to do that. We just would like to have the ability to come back afterwards and do an analysis whereby you can have some degree of saying, yeah, we agree it should only be based upon the reduction, based upon the actual data. And we'd be willing to look at other things if this were to be a problem. What I was saying to you is this additional concern. If there was something going to happen in this first year, and you made a request for an additional officer, we would need some time to get that person, but that would be something that we could do. But we don't think that's very likely,
So,
or the need for that, I mean.
So I need to put this on the record, is like, you study in Grove City, I work in Grove City. Very different demographic for the holidays that are celebrated in Grove City versus the holidays that are celebrated around the same time here. So like I said, Eid, 2 weeks before, fell on the Sunday, 2 weeks before July 4th, which definitely impacted my ability to go to a restaurant because it was packed, get out of my street at that point. So you saying, well, we looked at Grove City, to me, and it's not a problem. You guys are not listening to what we're telling you about our demographic in a way, because we live it, and you guys, that traffic study didn't consider that, and that is my concern. So I think that we need to step to the plate in this negotiation, whatever you want to call it. You guys have to listen to us because we're trying to help you.
No, I understand, and I hope you listened to me as well.
I sure did.
But I just want to explain that we've been doing this for 45 years. We have 90 stores. We are generally not that busy, with the exception of the few days before the July 4th. So that's why we're focused on those days.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that all the other businesses around here are, and they're all dumping traffic onto one street. There's no service road around here, so they're dumping that traffic there, and so any additional traffic is going to cause a problem. So it's not just your traffic, it's the addition of your traffic during that time, so you need to consider that.
Well, I think that what we're saying is that in traffic analysis, maybe you can explain this. When you do an analysis, do you look at what other stores are doing in terms of deciding how to do traffic? Or whether there's a change in the level of service?
We worked with the village and with the city of Columbus to determine what the study area was for the study. So we looked at Teakwood and Jordan. And so whatever businesses or anything that access those roads, that's what we looked at as part of the study. It's usually pretty standard that you would only look at one intersection adjacent to where traffic is coming out of for your proposed business.
But the point is that when you do a traffic study, you have to do it based upon actual counts, doing the actual methodology that's followed. We followed the City of Columbus's requirements, and the village had the opportunity to comment on that. So there's no other way to do it in the way that you're proposing. And what we're saying is that our traffic is going to be minimal, other than the 1 week beforehand. Even that time frame, we're going to be able to accommodate that to our schools.
Okay, so.
So I think maybe if I'm hearing the applicant correct, for this first year, you could make a condition that says, in addition to the state law mandated security guard, Phantom will hire a second security guard for the purposes of traffic management. And for this first year, we could use the date, we could use the dates we wanted, which are pretty, back to June 21st, which, we know the applicant says is overkill. We would say pull up the calendar, I'm sorry,
So we really want somebody sitting out there on the 24th from 12, 14 hours a day for absolutely no reason on a Tuesday.
Sure.
From all that I've heard, and I'm not elected, so this is up to you, I'm just saying, a 1 year period to start at what applicant and many might think is the extreme end is not the end of the world. Granted, we hold in that condition, in the final condition where we have the annual meeting, that we look at actual data and we can back off that in consultation with our police department. That's something like that. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree with that. Eric, are you correcting that? Okay, take the S off, officers. Yeah, thank you. Hire special,
Yeah, I just.
They
I
also
like-
have,
They have one.
They have
What they're saying is the second one for traffic for the first.
I'm not trying to add more days, but I would rather see July 5th than June 24th.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Eric, what I'm.
July 5th is a Saturday.
Yeah, on the real.
So I just don't, I'm not trying to give you guys more days, I think it's, I do not agree, I'm just,
For the
I think on a
first-
Tuesday, on the 20, whatever that is, we'll see. But I would like to see July 5th, only because that falls on Saturday this year. And I just feel like people that are like, ooh, my friends have it, let's go get fireworks.
So Eric's drafted that to June 21st to July 5th for the first year, Eric, and then we'll revisit that at the annual meeting with the traffic data.
Yeah.
So if I could just being the lawyer, I'm just, I don't know, I can say. So, that the Phantom Fires would have a meeting with the village
The data sheet.
following July 4th to discuss the modification of the days and hours when a second security guard would be required based upon examination of actual data.
Traffic. We're not talking about security guards, we're talking about traffic outside.
Yeah, that's why I said second traffic.
Okay, so I have it, initiates an annual meeting with the village administration after July 4th to discuss observed issues / problems, including potential modifications to traffic mitigation efforts, i.e. amount and duration of time for such officers.
And we just want it based upon actual data.
You can't, here's my issue, data has to be data specific to that time frame, we can't just be like data for April.
Oh, correct. Oh, absolutely. This will be data based on the hours, the days that we have imposed, right?
In transaction data or traffic data? Both?
It's not gonna be, we're not gonna do another traffic study, it won't be traffic counts, it'll be actual sales data.
Right. It'll be observation. If we see issues, we're obviously going to consult with you concerning this issue, both from our police observation, staff observation, otherwise, as to how things are functioning around the store. And that's what we're going to discuss.
Right. We just want it to be based upon actual data, it doesn't have to be traffic counts, but actual data of when we saw our sales volume for train.
What was the sales volume the the weekend after 4th of July.
Just so you understand, I know you think July 5th is going to be crazy. We've been in business for 45 years. For whatever reason, it's just like people don't go out and shop on December 26th. You don't get a lot of people on July 5th. Doesn't matter when.
Even if it's on weekend.
It doesn't matter what day of the year it is.
We wish it was.
Can you tell me what size the showroom space is at Grove City compared to this one?
So the state imposes a maximum show space. So what is the show space?
I'm sorry, gross.
Yes,
the retail is 75.
so the retail space is essentially the same, 7,500 square feet.
That's the maximum.
7,500 is the maximum allowed by law.
And then how much storage do you keep in there?
It would be 5,400 square feet for the storage area.
The retail for this building would be 7,300 square feet, slightly under that 7,500 max. For the storage in the stock room, now keep in mind this also includes break room, restrooms, and so forth. That's at 5,400 square feet.
Do you keep the shelves stocked all year round? The product is always on the shelf, or is it,
Yes.
so shelves are full year round?
Yes.
Wait, I have a question. When are deliveries? Will it be during your operating times, or will it be before and after? And
The answer would be both. Yeah.
what is that?
I'm sorry, I'm not telling you in the same day, but yes, one day it may be during operating hours, another day we may take it early, another day maybe
Define early.
before we open.
Okay, so 6 a.m.
I'm not here, I can't tell you what the schedule is right now.
Okay, can we limit
That seems awfully early.
If you wanna do it with the rest of them too, because we get deliveries at the other places super early.
Yeah, it's just like we limit our trash to.
No, not for commercial. They come at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, the deliveries are not gonna have noise associated with them.
It's not like the big
quiet.
huge device.
It's not gonna be really any different than the grocery store would have deliveries. It'll be less frequent actually than the grocery store.
Yeah, commercials, they empty those trash cans at like, unfortunately, the craziest hours. It's, yeah. And then we can hear the other ones.
I mean, I think we had a discussion on the council, but I would still like to see number 3, that's done within so many days after the 4th of July.
Oh, sure.
Like
When do you
45
guys
days or
usually,
something.
when do you guys usually do your, like, your month end? Like for us, when we reconcile July, it's gonna be August, some point in time in August. So when would you have your data for us to be, I don't wanna do it too soon because they don't have their data. Does it typically take you guys about 30 days?
Just so you understand, we have a fiscal year end of September 30th.
Okay.
So we try to reconcile.
Just like your month end for July.
She's asking, when would you know the sales trend for the 4th?
Are we talking about the meeting between?
Yes.
Yeah, and give us in July to do inventory, that kind of thing, anytime in August.
Okay.
So,
So maybe say by.
No later than August 30th.
Sure.
Sounds reasonable.
Hold on, I got another one. Who's gonna pay for the signs we have to put up? Even the ones on our streets, and I would like to add one on Wildwood, as well, for local traffic only. Would you commit to paying for as many signs as the village deems necessary?
So I think he misunderstood your question. Yeah, he was talking about the signs on the property. Of course,
So
he's
if the
paying for that,
village
so-
feels that they need to put up additional signs to mitigate that traffic or people turning the wrong way, or people trying to cut through because of backup, would you commit to paying for those things?
I don't know. What's that? I mean, I haven't discussed that with my client. I don't know what sign you're speaking of. You're talking about.
It would go
It's
through,
like a sign that says no through traffic, or no.
I think
no
it already
parking
says that,
for-
actually says no alcohol.
On that street, but not on Wildwood.
and
I
it
think we'd
says,
be happy to be a part of any discussion like that, you know, when you talk about a blank check. But I think we'd be happy to have any discussion like that.
I think, if you're not wrong to ask, I don't think we have legal authority to force them to do it, but if they're willing to be a partner, that could certainly be something we talk about in this annual meeting. This is a problem we notice, is there, if you're willing to be a partner.
and that's something council just needs to pass what they want to do, because she had a great idea about like permits and different things like that. If that's something we decide to do, there's gonna be some additional costs to all of that. And then, of course, the signs will have to be changed. Right now, we do have no parking on the side of the street. So whether or not we add some, at least through the first couple houses, you can stop before my house, it doesn't bother me. But if we did some on that side of the street or something like that, if people were turning around, no parking on the side of the street.
We can definitely move forward working with them as a core partner, and then council is the one that sets down what signs they want and need to put in the right of way. So it's something we can assess and tolerate.
Yeah, I think we'd be open to that.
Do we want to change number 3, instead of initiates that by the 30th, has the meeting by the 30th?
I think initiates means that they come to us and we don't have to worry about it.
Right, that sounds like they just have to say, hey, we're gonna schedule it as the.
Could I ask that the council speak louder?
There. Attention to the fans of fireworks initiates and holds an annual meeting with the village administration no later than August 3rd. So it has to be, they set it up and it gets done before.
You guys ready? I kind of want to keep it till 10 p.m.
Whole rest of your council members will see if
We can
everybody.
change it later, but I think 10 p.m. in accordance with our noise ordinances would be more appropriate for us to start off with.
I think they know their business practice, and I think you're gonna end up with a lot of more traffic in some of those hours.
At least I know when it stops.
Don't disagree with that.
And I think that, if I'm not correct, this noise or the village's ordinance did provide for 11 p.m. on weekends, is that it?
We can change it.
Well, we have, yeah, our pool is open until 11 p.m. We allow for those types of things, so in keeping with that, it is 11 on the weekends. That's your guys' call, not.
I would rather leave it like this and discuss it at the first meeting.
You want to
Yeah.
right now?
It's just the Friday and Saturday nights.
It's Friday, Saturday nights and July 3rd.
Yep.
We personally recommended July 1st to the 4th, but I understand.
But that's also something, if it's not as crazy as people are thinking it's going to be, that's something that maybe.
I think my concern is that comment that was made that let's hope that they're sober. Can you hear me? That when you made that comment, it made me feel that it would be good if that person was, you can't control that, you know, people drink when they drink, but maybe it's a little bit more likely that they have less time to drink till 10 p.m.
Okay, we don't really have any experience with people coming to our stores that aren't
I want to make that comment.
complying with the law in terms of what drunk driving laws are. So if somebody made that comment, I don't think that was based upon any kind of observation. Other than just the normal expectation that people are going to comply with the law.
Okay, does anybody else want to change that to 10? Is everybody okay leaving it till 11? Only on the weekends, like you said, Friday, Saturday?
What's your part of the business code?
Well, it's same thing, the pool's open till 11. I mean, I would say pooling throughout, or, you know, that's equal. If you have a party at the pool, it has to be open by 11. That's the only thing we really have, unless it's weekend. It's just the noise thing is what I'm going with. I don't know if it's anything else.
So the businesses like the restaurant, do they have closing hours?
I don't know what time they close, to be honest. I'm assuming they do, but I don't know what time they close. Yeah, I mean,
Right, I'm asking if you have requirements for the businesses.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I guess I would say that we do not have, my knowledge, looking through the code, a cap on when businesses must close. That's right. So that's sort of.
so this is a great condition.
I just say that we're an inside business, so people are not, we're not selling outside, so like a pool is gonna be open outside. This is not gonna be a noise issue.
Right. There's no patio sales outside the store.
Cars are silent.
Is there any other comments or any of the other conditions besides what we discussed?
I guess, can I make a comment? Are you guys open to not putting your like mascot thing on there? Like just doing what Grove City did? I don't think you guys have a phantom on the signage.
Just so you know, our sign code allows for any corporate logo up to 20% of the overall
I
sign
understand,
size.
it's just that the guy.
Traditionally, what we have is just the words Phantom Fireworks, and there's a circle with the Phantom.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that is the extent of the signage on the building, traditionally.
So this is more of a suggestion, but I don't, the area here, I don't know if it's PC around here.
We obviously will submit the building signage for approval.
This is only 7 of them, right? Up there.
Oh, there's an eighth. The eighth condition is that it's kind of built in suspenders, but it'll comply with the applicable property maintenance code, which of course they have to.
I think one other thing that, an additional one that possibly is submitting, I forget, I didn't know to you, I said, submitting safety compliance records.
Sure, this may be a question that this is kind of beyond my expertise. The safety expert might know. Are there trainings or certificates that your employees have to have either issued by the state or your company?
Yeah, all the employees they'll go through an orientation, we go through the emergency evacuation plan. We have manuals in each store, and they have training record logs in there. So we have to conduct hazardous material training, conduct OSHA GHS hazard communication training, as well as emergency response training. We also train all of our managers, assistant managers in the use of life-saving CPR and so forth. So we have annual meetings every year where we bring all the regional managers, the key holders, and all the management team in for training. But we also do outreach training. I get out to the showrooms and do hands-on training for certain circumstances. We have online training also. So we cover quite a bit.
I think your question is, what do you have in terms of like a document that shows you complied with the safety regulations? And so we have a license that the state fire marshal provides, and we can certainly provide you a copy of that. And that's renewed annually.
One other thing, we give a safety flyer to every transaction. So every person that leaves the store has a safety flyer of the do's and don'ts, just so above and beyond the employees, every transaction is that.
Yeah. But I think what you're looking for is essentially we get the license, and then when the state fire marshal reviews it, they're making sure you're doing all these other things that have been described here. So I think it's going to be relying on the state fire marshal process as the way to do that, rather than to try to be your own state fire marshal.
Does that include testing of the emergency systems and stuff like that?
Maybe Patrick, could you explain that? So basically, before the store even opens, there's several testings that are going on with at the state fire marshal and the local fire department and the building department. But after the store opens up, they do annual tests to make sure that all the safety equipment works properly, there's no issues associated with it. That's not only just the sprinkler system, but that's also the smoke exhaust system, the doors. It's an annual thing that they check and make sure. If any of those components fail, it has to be fixed immediately. And same thing, they also do spot inspections. So they will come in unannounced, and if they come through and see something, that has to be fixed immediately. So the state fire marshal, wonderful people that we work with,
make sense to me. I added a 9th condition that Phantom Fireworks shall submit to the village upon request the annual license provided by the state fire marshal, ensuring the business is compliant with all applicable state codes. So we have, we drop by and ask them, send an email, and we'll send it.
Okay.
And I should say that license generally is displayed in the store anyway, so that's fine.
Right.
Just like the food license.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my other concern is there any way you guys, so when you mentioned that store in Florida, your statement was that it was a grandfathered store that didn't have a fire suppression system. And so you said, it was grandfathered in, that's why it happened. Have you committed since that point to update outdated codes that are grandfathered in so this doesn't happen? Or are you just gonna say, oh, it's grandfathered in, don't worry about it?
So in Ohio, since Ohio has been allowed for lawful sale of consumer-grade fireworks, generally all the stores that we have opened, can you explain, we basically bring it up to code.
As you know, the code gets updated many times through the years. In fact, we just went through in 2024 a new updated code. Basically, all the stores that we do here in Ohio is brought up to a new code as if we were building it from scratch. So all the systems are essentially up to the new code. There is no grandfathering in anything for our Ohio stores. Now, in the case of Florida and so forth, I can't speak of what was done and what was allowed in their code back 27 years ago, of when that building was, constructed or modified.
Can we pretend the year's 2046 and there's new code that's applied? Will the code be updated while the fire code is updated, or will it remain the same as it is in 2024?
No one has that magic 8 ball. I'd love to say for it, but to answer your question, the code does not address that regardless of any situation. Whether it is all the hazardous materials in your Home Depot with their paints and aerosols and so forth, or any of the other stores around with it, the code doesn't address of what it may change or alter in the future.
I think the question is, if in 2046 the code updates such that what you have now doesn't meet that code, does Phantom have a plan to update to meet the new code down the line? I suppose I think that's maybe the question.
You do it annually, correct?
Is that
You have to do it every single year?
Just as it's a tough question to answer because about 27 years in the future, but we regularly have a CapEx budget where annually we go through and make improvements with safety and whatnot to the entire fleet of showrooms. So, the answer generally is we take a look at those things every year.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Just to make sure that the traffic mitigation reflects not just your store, but the adjacent streets as well. Because my concern is that you will address your own traffic, but not how it impacts a dead end street.
I think that's part of our responsibility too, right? To share that with them in the meeting. Is how that traffic is affected, observationally speaking.
Is there a way to just add that in there, just to make sure that
Well, we have, unless I'm missing what you're saying, let me know if I am. We just have the amount and duration of time for traffic management officers based upon transaction and traffic data. To me, that's helpfully broad in that we can say if we get 45, just as they have to show us transaction data, if we can say, well, there were 55 calls about cars turning around in driveways on Jordan, that's a problem for us. I think that's something that we bring up in that, and I think that's included in that condition.
Okay.
Do you have extra sales throughout the
Okay.
year?
This isn't back and forth.
We need to know. It's gonna impact traffic.
We're in the middle of this.
So, before you, I just want the table set for a motion, and then I'll be quiet. There's 3 actions you can do. You can approve the conditional use permit, you can approve it with modification, or you can disapprove it. P&Z recommended disapproval under their 5 criteria. We have the criteria outlined in 1232.02E. These conditions, I believe 9 we have here, if we all discussed. That would be the motion. If you were to move to approve it with modifications, it would be the 9 conditions typed up here. And that's really all I have. If you guys want to take one more final read through all of those, that's certainly.
For us blind people, can you look?
Yes, yes.
Plug that thing in, it's gonna die soon.
It is.
You guys got it right?
Everyone was really hiding.
If you click on text with, that'll be,
I've read it like 5 times, I should make sure everybody else does.
Yeah.
Just for the record, can you just state one more time what number 3 is under the traffic? Because I'm not sure you mentioned that tonight.
Oh, okay.
On the traffic impact study?
Yeah. What are the things that have to be done on number 3? It's the first thing up there.
Right.
You're trying to find the traffic test.
I was just thinking it myself.
Oh, I see.
So, one second, I'll read this to you. Okay. The improvements included in this analysis are the following: modify the traffic signal at Cleveland Avenue to provide signal heads for the westbound approach for directed City of Columbus traffic management, strike the southbound turn lane, 50-foot storage lane at Cleveland Avenue, Cleveland Drive, closure of existing western side access drive on Jordan Road, modification of eastern side access drive on Jordan Road to inbound only access. So this is the one that's closed up, I have several responses, this is the one that's made entrance only. Parking will continue here, 50 feet, and then there's the addition of the,
So the strike, the 50 feet of strike is for, it's a
for
turn
queuing,
lane?
for queuing into the site.
Into the site off Teakwood.
And where is it queuing into? The entrance there at Teakwood or Jordan?
Jennifer, do you want to answer that?
Oh,
It's the 50-foot southbound left turn lane on Cleveland. Right, I mean, the pavement exists right now, it's just striped out, so they will restripe it so that it is a turn lane.
And is it 50 feet from Teakwood to Jordan?
It's 50 feet from the stop bar
To Jordan.
to further, yeah.
It is further than that.
I don't think Jordan is 50 foot away
Is
from.
it gonna impact the left-hand turn into Jordan?
No.
And then it's adding the traffic signal at the exit there.
Correct, it's adding the signal heads to that.
Are they, is the, I don't know what I'm trying to say, because I don't know the like terms, but
Yeah.
is,
Start right here,
okay,
and then 50 feet out.
okay. And then are there trip lights put in or anything to help get people out? Because there's not a lot of queue space to get traffic out of the parking lot there.
Yeah, the city of Columbus has a lot of signal standards, and they'll definitely make sure that, that signal is actuated.
And it'll be connected to the one in Northland Plaza that they're not. I'm assuming that they'll look at that. It has to be synchronized. I know we're way too far in this.
We don't have any say in that.
Oh, I will.
It would be nice.
That's where I'll get involved.
So I was just gonna say that here. So essentially what's happening here is that you've got a 3 traffic signals. They're not currently a traffic signal in Teakwood. And essentially the city.
There's not one for this traffic here. This traffic right now is currently
So there's a traffic here, but there's nothing over here.
Yeah.
So what Columbus requested is that we can add a traffic signal on Teakwood. For the traffic exit.
The traffic on Teakwood currently has a signal. The traffic coming out of the site does not have a signal.
westbound traffic.
Correct, the westbound traffic. This traffic right now has no signal. And the city of Columbus is requiring that to be signalized.
Can I just ask for one clarification? So it says traffic data. We wouldn't necessarily have traffic counts, like, because you have to have somebody who's stand there at the corner to count. We're going to use transactional data.
No, we're also working with you going to have traffic, we're gonna have our own data as well.
You have your own data.
Right,
Yeah.
if there's traffic data, we're gonna have it for observational status, we're gonna have it for police reports, there'll be different ways of handling that.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring it to the
Can
table.
you put in like Fred, not a traffic study, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree. I don't think that's the intent of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to have to hire MSSL to do a whole new traffic study.
No, I think that's gonna be people like me and her and everybody that can't get out at the end of our street, or there's adjustments that need to be made, or,
Yeah,
I
we
mean, I
can
should say
certainly
a lot
do
of those
that
people.
if necessary, but I didn't want to.
If I have a 30-minute emergency and I can't get to the hospital in 30 minutes, I will be calling you.
Is that sufficient? Did you-
Yeah,
Okay, very good.
Here's my only thing. Is there traffic data? Here's my concern still. Okay, ready guys? I live on Burke. My concern is that during July 3rd or whatnot, I am not able to, because the traffic is backed up, I am not able to turn into my street, or the traffic is so backed up waiting at that light that I can't exit. And I don't think there's any data to discuss that or any way to quantify that.
That's why we have a traffic direction officer under the conditions here that the issue out of Jordan, that was discussed at P&Z.
So what if the traffic officer just physically can't move? At the cars, like, okay, there's nowhere to go.
He makes it happen. You've seen officers work traffic, right? I mean, the officers can do it.
Yes, if somebody needs to get out of Jordan, they're there.
I would note, once again, I think this is as good as we're going to get without this situation occurring. I think it's an entirely fair concern. I just think that after the first year, we'll see what happens.
Right, if there's an accident at Cleveland and 161, there's an accident at Teakwood, there's an accident here, all not related to you guys, I could see how that would be an issue.
Sure.
At some point, you can't, I agree, you can't what if to death. But we can come back to you guys if it is absolutely horrific and say, okay, this isn't working, what can we do? Because the third is just a mess and you can't get out. And of course, I know a lot of people have the same concern. Yasmin's traffic on the third is probably gonna be just as bad, if not actually. There were 17 cars parked in your guys' lot the last time they were busy, which was just recently. So they don't have enough, and I'm saying this, not that it's your problem, but they do not have enough parking. They do, their traffic backs us up to where and I think part of this, with a lot of people saying this, we already have an issue. So I think the concern is you're adding to the issue. I understand that that's not your business's fault, but it is a problem. I mean, we know that Yasmin is a problem. And I don't mean it the business sense, but
Their lack of parking.
they don't have enough parking. They're using your lot. That's gonna be between the two of you, but we can't get out of our street. Shutting this exit is gonna be phenomenal because people can't dart across. Like, there are a couple things that's really good, but we already have an issue with Yasmin. And I think part of everybody's issue is, we're looking at this going, it's already an issue on the third. Now what's gonna happen? So I think we're really trying to prepare you for, again, how bad it really is. You know, I know you guys aren't really from around here, but come here on a Saturday afternoon and see how bad it is and how many people are parked in your guys' parking lot. Because I think you will be surprised. So it's just figuring that part out. I do think that that's gonna be interesting.
Right. No one has anything else. Who's got a motion to you?
I think,
Well, on the basis of my role in legislation, it is time for the council to decide. And on that basis, I make a motion for passage for conditional use with the modifications here described.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Seconded, Mother Beauty.
Does anybody have any more discussions before we do roll call?
I have
Speak
something
now,
brief.
or forever hold your peace. And we can go down through here, go ahead.
Just briefly, I wish, there was a way that we could all, go back and make this progress, or this process so much more smooth, but here's where we are, and it is my sincere hope that things work well and that you guys at Phantom will be, you know, responsive and receptive and the good neighbors that you claim you aspire to be.
We'll hold you to that statement. I think they're getting it.
I'm my maintenance.
As David just talked, I'm assuming most council people are gonna wanna say something before or after they vote, so just bear with them for a minute. All right, do you wanna just do it each person? Because David was actually first on roll call. Do you want him to do it, and then I'll go to the next one, or do you want all of
No, you should have everybody discuss and then vote. We're not having a discussion.
JP, do you have something you wanna say before you're not voting yet, but do you have something you wanna say?
I want people to know this isn't just a simple yes or no answer. You might think it is, but it's not. Let me explain to you what happens if I say no. Jesse, what happens if I say no?
Let me explain. Jesse, what happens?
I hesitate to torch our legal argument on the record, but I think you have gone a long way towards as good as you're going to get in this scenario, would be my statement on it. I think there's a real possibility, very real, that you could end up with, we could spend $100,000 in legal fees to my firm's benefit and end up with Phantom Fireworks without any conditions. And that's my opinion, which is why I worked to get some conditions imposed. And it's not just my opinion, I run it by 11 different planning and zoning lawyers in my office. Premier local government firm in Central Ohio, probably the state. And to a man and woman, it was that the zoning looks pretty good for Phantom Fireworks. You should try to get some conditions that help out the residents' concerns.
With that said, I really want to say no, but I don't have the village's interest at heart. I don't.
You don't have whose?
The village's interest at heart if I said no.
Okay. I'm gonna do, only because it started there, I don't wanna go backwards, so. Council President Cameron, do you have anything you wanna say? You're fine. Okay. Tom?
No, I think, I'm on P&Z and I've listened to everything, and I think that, I want everybody to know that on P&Z, we have a completely different set of criteria to vote on when we're making our recommendation to council on how to vote compared to the set of criteria that we have on council, specifically for a straight up denial. And I think when you read through these three terms, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to vote no, given the applicant's presentation and what they brought to the table.
Can you read those to us?
Yes, so for, I don't have the, yeah, 123202.
I have it, want me to.
Okay, yeah.
Council shall only disapprove of an application for conditional use for any one of the following. A, the proposed use is not a conditional use of the zoning district where the applicable development standards are not and cannot be met. B, the proposed development is not in accord with appropriate plans of the area. Or C, the proposed development will have undesirable effects on the surrounding area and is not in keeping with the existing land use character and physical development potential of the area.
And so thank you, Jesse. When I look at those conditions, the only one I truly have an objection to is will have undesirable effects, because I know that there's going to be some traffic challenges, but they are willing to, work with us to make sure that that's less of a problem. In that portion C, there's ands, and is not in keeping with the land use character. I think what they've presented, and I agree with, it's a retail store. It's not a fireworks launching site. And I think that what they have, from my perspective, is a lot of due diligence, Ohio Fire Code, a lot of safety things that they're putting into place to the best of their ability to make sure that it's not a problem. I don't think that Phantom wants stores to go up in flames. It's bad for business. And I don't think they also want traffic issues either. I think they want to make sure that they're mitigated, because if you, in any business, you want people in, you want people out, you want transactions. Every time I go to Texas Roadhouse, I always think about how they treat people like, you're like the cat at Texas Roadhouse. You're in and you're out. You never find a warm or a cool seat in that place. And they would love for that. And I think this actually helps them improve their business by having a better traffic flow. But sorry, that's just what I have to say.
Thank you. Councilperson Wong.
Oh geez, I want to thank everybody for putting in all of the effort that we put into coming to this point. I want to at least address all of you guys. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for addressing your concerns. Please don't feel that I didn't listen, and I'm sorry if you're not being there. Please don't think that I didn't listen to the planning and zoning meeting multiple times. Please don't think that I didn't consider every point that was made. Please don't think that your voice went unheard. And please don't think that any of these decisions were made on the fly and that we didn't lose sleep over it, we didn't talk it through, we didn't talk about it with our neighbors, or, we didn't consider every angle of being between a rock and a hard place. So you guys have to give us some grace too, because we are also people, and you've elected us to make these really hard decisions, so thank you for that honor, and please know that we did pour our hearts into this. That being said, this is hard. This is very hard. That's all I got.
Councilperson Passion.
And I'll just say thank you all so much for being here and addressing everyone's concerns. We know that you heard us, whether people sitting here right now feel that they've been heard. I thank you especially for sharing your process with us, because you clearly looked at our code before you ever bought that building. And that, based on what Jesse said about his peers, I know my answer.
Nothing here has been taken lightly. I firmly believe I can speak for everyone in saying that.
No, so I will just say that we've been in this process now for over a year. Sleepless nights, I think, is definitely something most of us can say, especially over the last 2 weeks. As you guys are fully aware, I'm the one that ultimately believed that this is where we were going to end up. I don't know what everybody's going to answer, but my answer last week was pretty simple. I knew our code, I knew what we were facing, and I knew where we were headed. So as difficult as it was for me to say what I said last week, and trust me, I saw all the nice little Facebook comments and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the real answer is we have to follow the law. As much as we want, I personally want to listen to every single person and do exactly what everybody says. It's not like they've alluded to, it's not that easy. It's my job sitting here has been pretty simple. I live 350 feet from you, so you guys will see me walk around your building 100 times a week, because I do. But again, I live 350 feet, so I'm also a realtor. I hear the insurance things, I hear all of those things that everybody has a concern, and I do believe living closer to this property probably affects us more than the people on down further and all of that. Am I right? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you guys have been, you guys are the ones that reached out to us multiple times. You guys have not hid from anything. So I do feel like you guys will be a good partner, and we will be able to work with you guys on follow-up concerns and things like that. So again, I thank you guys. I thank all of you guys. Again, this is not easy for any one person sitting up here. No matter if they say yes or no, they know what the consequences are if they say yes. They know what the consequences are if they say no. So that's just where it is. So at the end of the day, this is where we are, and I'm gonna do roll call.
Wait, I need to understand how we're answering, because I think we have 3 choices of an answer.
Correct.
Not yes or no.
So the motion on the table was to approve with the conditions as listed.
Yeah,
So yes,
that's
vote.
what I moved. That's what he moved. It's not, and so if I said it wrong,
Okay.
it's not. And I think that's where people kind of got off on my answer on the other day, because I didn't agree with no. We spent an hour talking about conditions, and then they all moved to go a different direction. So people just thought I wanted to approve without conditions.
So a yes vote here approves with these conditions. A no vote does not.
Got it. Wait, thank you.
A yes?
One last thing, sorry.
Can we do that
Is it
with
too late?
a motion
What's
on, or do we have to redo the
Is this a
motion?
discussion or?
No, I wanted to add one more word.
What?
You want to amend the motion?
I do want to amend the motion.
Well,
Well, I'm sorry, what do you want to make, since we're in discussion, what do you want to make it?
yeah, it could be.
Calm down. Village administration can also be a council person. I think we've discussed that.
I think, well, I don't think it needs to, you can just,
Okay.
you're welcome to, you guys can sit in
Just
there.
make sure that's on the record.
As long as we don't get.
Is that coming?
Yeah.
And how you? Okay.
So we don't need to change anything?
No.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve with conditions as listed.
Yep.
Councilperson McNamara.
Aye.
Councilperson Passion.
Aye.
Councilperson Martin. Council President Cameron.
This is where I'm gonna speak.
Go for it.
Alright, so I broke down a few minutes here. So I want to start by thanking everyone for their comments, emails, conversations, counsel, and interest in this matter. I take this responsibility seriously and have spent hours researching and reflecting on how to proceed that will have the least impact on the well-being of this community. If you had asked me a few years ago if I thought we'd be having this conversation about selling fireworks in the neighborhood, I would have been very skeptical. We don't have many large retail or commercial business space within this village. Most business spaces are on the smaller side, and there are very few vacancies. When fireworks were first mentioned in a council meeting or work session, it was focused on lighting of the fireworks. I don't recall any conversation about selling the fireworks, and if we did, I would have thought about sparklers and small and lovely items in the retail space that we have here. I do remember sitting in that council meeting in Minerva Frames Elementary School when there was a discussion about a guest speaker and where they would go on the agenda that night. I sat there listening to the presentation, trying to understand what was happening. There were some questions, as I recall, and the meeting ended. Several months following the meeting, we had several visitors to our meetings themselves, and representatives from Phantom and their legal counsel. Council was working through the code rewrite, and we discussed what, if anything, we could do to keep them from moving into the neighborhood. The village received the application from Phantom prior to the code change, and the moratorium went into effect, while the code rewrite was finalized. The process began in bringing the application to planning and zoning, and that concluded almost 2 weeks ago, and we are now here at this place. I want to say that I appreciate our law director and the firm that he represents. Frost, Brown & Todd have over 575 attorneys in 17 offices in 9 states and Washington, D.C., and I respect their counsel on this matter. The Phantom Fireworks, you found a community near the heart of a major city where you can set up shop. Your customers should be those people who can legally use your product, but you'll be operating in an area that consists of about 750 homes that can currently light off fireworks. Not merely the consumer market that can keep your doors open. Everywhere else for several miles has outlawed the use of fireworks, but you know that they'll still buy your product despite it not being legal for them to light them off. The markup on your product must be pretty damn good to operate for 11 months of the year with so few sales. In the end, I know that the courts will side with the retailer in these situations, and the village has little to no chance of winning this should it be voted down. Voting no would allow you to operate with no guardrails and accountability for the safety and well-being of this community. So tonight, I will vote yes for the conditions for this application.
Well said.
All right. Councilperson Cost.
I will say this, to echo what Jason is saying, because we have 4 votes yes, I have the luxury to say no. And I'm saying it because I want to represent my family, my children, my neighbors, Jordan Road and Park Lane. And I'm going to say no for the record.
You want to say it again? Okay, so this is passed. Does anybody else up here have anything they want to say? Well, I want to say thank you to council that did vote for it. I live 350 feet from it, so I won these conditions, so I appreciate you guys.
I have a question. Do we know when they might open?
I was going to ask them that next. Okay. Do you have any idea, once you guys get the permit, how long, are we expecting you guys to be open by New Year's Eve?
That'll be tough.
Tough.
Yeah, we won't rush it for New Year's Eve, sometime maybe later.
So I believe we need a motion to adjourn at this point.
Well, no, okay, so.
Oh, yeah, it is open.
Do we have any old business? Any new business? I actually did. September 5th is work session, and that is at
7?
7. So don't forget, we've adjusted these 7 times. 7 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?